Okay, hello everyone. Welcome to our Intersectionality Day virtual event. My name is Salvador Navarro and I'm one of the FYE counselors in El Camino College. And we are thrilled to have you today at our event. I'm actually gonna toss it to my co-host who's gonna be also introducing himself.
Hi, y'all. My name is Jack Spencer. I'm an adjunct faculty in the Communication Studies Department, and I'm super excited to be sharing with all of you this event about intersectionality.
Yes, and so before we get started, we do want to thank everybody for making time on your Friday. I know, Fridays are important. It's the day we get a little bit of relief from a long week, but we do want to thank you for being here today. This event, I do want to acknowledge that it's being sponsored by the LGBTQIA+ Safe Zone Project Committee, also the Student Equity and Achievement, the Undocu Warriors, First Generation Initiative, and then also very importantly, the ECC African American Employee Network as well. So I do want to acknowledge some of the people that are here in the room with us today. We will be having our timekeeper who's going to make sure that we stay on track for this event. His name is Caesar, if you can wave to everyone, Caesar. He's going to be keeping us in track and also recording the session. We do want to record the session because we do want to make it available to those who were not able to attend, and it will be available on our LGBTQI+ resource website at El Camino College. I do also want to give a shout out to Kiana and Erica, who are going to be helping out with the breakout rooms, as there is a fun activity that we're going to be doing later on in this presentation. And then also Mark, for those of you who are faculty members at El Camino College and wish to receive flex credit, we do ask that you type in your name on your screen so that we can actually give you credit for attending this session. So thank you, Mark, for taking role for the faculty members for El Camino College who are going to be getting flex credit for attending this event. I also do want to give a special shout out to the whole remaining intersectionality committee who helped put together this event. Cynthia, Hong, Suranda, Chris de la Cruz, Jacqueline, and also Rosalba. So thank you so much for your efforts. And without further ado, we're going to go ahead and get started with our presentation. So I should have had this ready, but I didn't. Let me go ahead and share my screen. So I do want to share with all of you, the PowerPoint that we're going to be sharing with everybody. So let me go ahead and open it up. So again, we're grateful that you're here today, and you made some time on a Friday. So thank you for being here. Let me go ahead and see. The transition slide. Oh, here, present. There you go. Perfect. So actually that's our logo, as all of you guys have seen. Those are the people that are sponsoring this event. So just before we get started, I do want to tell everybody a little bit about what this event will be. Intersectionality, we're going to be discussing the term intersectionality, what it means, and then also how forms of discrimination and oppressions overlap across various identities such as race, class, gender, religion, sexual orientation, ability, and so many other more. Hopefully, by attending this event, you'll be able to build some community through empathy, solidarity, connection, and hopefully we're able to see the most important thing, which is our shared humanity. So Jack, if you can share with everybody a little bit about what the term intersectionality means, and then also if you can tell us who coined it.
Awesome. Thank you, Sal. So intersectionality, the whole name of this whole event, is a term that was actually coined in 1989 by a feminist legal scholar who is a Black woman by the name of Kimberly Williams Crenshaw. According to Brookings Institute, I just was doing a little bit of searching about Kimberly right before the meeting. She's the most cited woman legal scholar in history. So she's really, really well known and well renowned, and she's actually teaching over at UCLA. She's an American lawyer, civil rights advocate, philosopher, and a leading scholar of critical race theory. one of her quotes that we have here on the slides is, "These days I start with what it's not because there has been distortion. It's not identity politics on steroids. It is not a mechanism to turn white men into the new pariahs. It is basically a lens, a prism for seeing the way in which various forms of inequality often operate together and exacerbate each other. We tend to talk about race inequality as separate from inequality based on gender, class, sexuality, or immigrant status. What's often missing is how some people are subject to all of these, and the experience is not just the sum of its parts." And so basically, she's really just trying to give us a way to understand how different intersections of our identities experience oppression and how they experience that individually and as those identities intersect. However, I think the best way to kind of understand intersectionality and Kimberly Crenshaw is to get it from her voice herself. So we have a great video on the next slide here that she can explain some of this herself.
Give me 1 second. Is everybody able to hear the audio?
It's a little low.
Okay, hold on. Give me 1
Yes.
second. Yeah. So let me stop the video.
To read the scholarship on intersectionality.
Okay, so let me go ahead and see. Jack, are you able to do it on your end?
Let me take a look.
I know it's not letting me.
I think my volume is good. Let me go ahead and,
Good? Okay.
yeah, I'll just steal the screen share for a moment and play the video if you don't mind.
Yeah. Okay, I think the sound is back. So let's just show it as technology, right? Okay. I can't hear anything, Jack.
Yeah, so there's a little, like next to the sound microphone, there's a little up, like a little carrot. It's like an upward arrow. If you click that and select a speaker, it should be the same as system.
Yeah, and the interesting thing is that we actually tested this. We actually
Is this
tested
better?
for this, so it's interesting that it's actually.
Have on the Zoom, did you click share audio?
Yeah, I'm sharing my audio because if I speak, you can hear me. So let me try again.
Well,
You hear that?
you actually have to share the audio of the computer itself, of the video. It's I know when I was doing a workshop, there was something you had to go in and click so that the computer screen audio is being shared. It's through Zoom, not through your computer.
It's when you hit the share screen button.
At the top of view options, right where you say where you're sharing your screen, there'll be a drop-down menu which allows you to correct that. So again, since you're sharing your screen at the top, right next to where it says sharing screen, view options, drop down, and then share audio.
Erica, can you try to do it on your end? Because I think you're the host.
Yes, I did just try to do it, but it's not working.
Okay.
Oh no, y'all, this video is so great. I'm so
Yeah,
sorry.
now what we can do is if we open it up on a different screen, like instead of like the PowerPoint and just share it straight from YouTube, we can also do it like that.
Do you guys want to try that?
Yeah. Let's see. Hong, what's the title of the video that when you found it on YouTube?
Introduction to Intersectionality.
Okay.
I put a link in the chat for you, Sal.
Okay. 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 Thank you. Let's see. Okay. So let me go ahead and share my screen. Okay. There you go. Okay.
What is intersectionality? The word
I can hear it. So just turn it up for us. And
many buzzwords, its meaning has been distorted through its broad usage. It is thus critical to read the scholarship on intersectionality and to listen to Black women who have been developing this theoretical framework for decades. Intersectionality is not a question of counting our identities to see how many marginalized identities we have. Intersectionality is not something that only applies to people of color or to women. It applies to us all, as intersectionality involves an analysis of how multiple systems of oppression shape all of our lives. For example, white supremacy, patriarchy, and capitalism are three interlocking systems of oppression. White supremacy is a system of racial stratification that places whites at the top of the hierarchy. Patriarchy is a system of gender oppression where men hold the power and are the central figures in the family, community, government, and larger society. Capitalism is a system of class exploitation that produces wealth and income inequality through a profit-based system that maximizes profit for capitalists. Sociologist Patricia Hill Collins argues that these three systems are interdependent and that we cannot understand one system without looking at the others. Feminist theorist Bell Hooks describes these systems of oppression as the white supremacist capitalist patriarchy. Bell Hooks explains that the interlocking systems of classism, racism, and sexism work to keep women exploited and oppressed. Kimberly Crenshaw was the first scholar to refer to the intersection of these systems of oppression as intersectionality. Building on notions of interlocking systems of oppression developed by Black feminists, Crenshaw published an article in 1991 that argued that an intersectional framework is necessary to understand the experiences of women of color who have survived domestic violence. In her study of women.
Okay, so they're actually going to go more into the research part of Kimberly Crenshaw. So we decided to only show you a glimpse of the video, but feel free to watch the entire video that's actually available. We uploaded it into the chat. But at this point, Jack, if you can share your screen again with the PowerPoint presentation, we do want to get moving forward. I apologize again for all the technical difficulties, but as you can see, we live in a very vulnerable world, right? So we just have to go with it, right? But at this point, we do want to introduce the following panelists who are actually here present in our panelist portion of this event, that we do want to give them some time to introduce themselves before we go ahead and dive into those questions of what intersectionality is to them in terms of their identity, and then other questions that we have prepared for them. So our panelists, if we can have you, I'm going to start off with Ana Soto. If you can introduce yourself to everybody, if you can just say what your, obviously I said your name, your name, any pronouns, if you use any pronouns, and then also your affiliation with El Camino College.
Yeah, thank you, Sal. So my name is Ana Fejeda Soto. My pronouns are they, them. So I'm the Director of Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion for ASO, the co-chair for SEAC, and the Vice President for the Undocu Warriors Club. So yeah, thank you. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, no, thank you for being here. And then if we can have the other Anna, let's do two Annas at the same time. If you can introduce yourself to everybody as well.
Hi, everyone. My name is Anna Brochet. I'm a counselor for the EOP&S program. My pronouns are she, her, hers. And I'm really happy to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
No, thank you, Anna. We're excited to have you. And then also we can have Robert introduce himself to everyone.
Good morning, y'all. My name is Robert Williams. I am a counselor with the Student Equity and Achievement Program. I also do a little work with athletics as well as with our Native Hawaiian and Pacific Islander students in a program called MANA. Oh, and he, him, his, something like that. Yeah.
Himself too. It's a new one. Yeah, I know it's so confusing because there's so many different pronouns, but yeah, thank you, Robert. Thank you. We appreciate you being here. And then also if we can toss it to Kazia. Kazia, if you can introduce yourself.
Hi, everyone. Cassie Owasik. I'm a faculty member in sociology, and I've had lots of experience teaching in FYE, and I also am now the co-director of the Honors Transfer Program. So I'm just really excited for this panel. Great job pulling it together, and I look forward to our discussion today. Oh, she, her, hers.
Thank you, Kazia. We're happy to have you here. It's always a delight having you. I love your bubbly personality. And then also we can have Bernard also introduce himself or themselves. If you can unmute yourself, Bernard.
Oh, sorry about that. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Hello, everybody. My bad. My name is Bernard Mofa, but I mostly go by Kofi. My pronouns are he, him, his, and I'm an EOPS peer mentor, and I'm also part of Special Resource Center.
Thank you for being here. We appreciate you. And then very lastly, if we can have the illustrious Suranda Bray introduce themselves.
Good morning, y'all. My name's Suranda Silvers, formerly Bray, got married last year. And my pronouns are she, her, hers, and Aya. And I am a counseling faculty in the First Year Experience Office, and I'm also one of the co-leaders for the First Gen Initiative here on campus.
Well, thank you, Suranda. We appreciate you having you here and everybody else who just introduced themselves. We do want to go ahead and move forward with the panel discussion because we do have some very important questions that we would like to discuss. For this portion, we do ask the panelists that when we ask the question, I'm going to be asking every other odd question. I'm also going to have Jack help me out with the even questions. So 2, 4, and 6. I'll be doing 1, 3, and 5. So if you can we can start off with 2 panelists just answering the question, the very first question. And then if we have additional time, then we'll allow more people to, more of the panelists to answer some of those questions. But yeah, if we can have the first 2 panelists, whoever that may be, maybe raise your hand, and then we can have Caesar just call on you to answer this specific question. If you can please tell us what role has intersectionality played in your—
Sal, we're starting up here. Sorry. What does this one?
Of course. Yeah. Thank you.
Sorry.
It's because we made some changes. What does intersectionality mean to you? And then also, if you can respond to us in terms of what are some of the most important parts of your identity. So again, what does intersectionality mean? You know, when you hear the word intersectionality, what do you think it means? And then also, what is the most important parts of your identity or identities that you embody? So if we can have Caesar call on 2 of the panelists who wish to answer this question.
Sure, go ahead, Anna.
Awesome, thank you, Caesar. So we'll start off with what intersectionality means to me. And it means basically learning what my identities are and how that makes me move in a world with people who don't have the same identities as me, or have other identities that aren't quote unquote as socially or even culturally acceptable. And I would say that some of the most important parts of my identity are the fact that I'm a non-binary lesbian as well as an undocumented immigrant. Yeah, thank you.
Saranda?
Awesome. So for me, intersectionality really means that we have multiple intersecting identities that are moving throughout us simultaneously, and at different moments, different parts of your identity may be more salient. And so some of the most important parts of my identity are being Black, being female, being a first generation college student, being a first generation college graduate, and also coming from a low income background.
Perfect.
All right, so if we're doing 2, then that means we're on question number 2. If we find ourselves with a little more time, we're gonna circle back and allow y'all to speak on anything that you might have missed, but moving right along to number 2, and any 2 people can take this. Caesar will call on you. What role has intersectionality played in your personal, educational, or professional life?
I'd like to jump in on this one, if that's all right. Given that I'm a sociologist, we study what happens between people. And so when I was in graduate school and actually undergrad, we started talking about intersectionality in terms of what happens when groups of people who have common identities have differences within them. And so how intergroup differences can acknowledge and understand that not everybody experiences a common identity in the same way. And so, even though there's this, Crenshaw coined this term, I mean, we've been talking as sociologists and in other disciplines about intersecting identities, just not using that particular terminology for quite some time. And so not only is it the struggle with multiple systems of oppression, but it's also the power inherent in those multiple systems of hegemony and of dominance in terms of culture. And so, in terms of the work that I do with sexualities, I know, coming out as bisexual and trying to create bisexual visibility within research was a daunting process. And I didn't understand that there was so much intra-group difference within the gay and lesbian community. And that's how we, originally were kind of discussing it. So now starting to realize not only academically, but also personally, what that meant to have a more diverse LGBTQ+, which we didn't have the Qs and the pluses, all those years ago, right? To see how the community has evolved to understand those intragroup differences. Not only has my responsibility as a researcher been to create visibility of perhaps, bisexuals in these groups, but now with more developed identities that challenge, being non-binary, that challenge, the inherent reinforcement of gender structures in some of our identities. We've continued to move in that direction to realize that there are some differences within our groups, right? So that's how I kind of conceptualize intersectionality.
That's awesome. Thank you, Kasia.
Bernard, go ahead.
Yes, so intersectionality has played a major role in my personal life. When it started off, my identities is that I'm an African male, I'm disabled, I'm low class, and yeah, I think I already mentioned that I'm disabled. This obviously is playing a role right now because I can't really stay on the screen for too long because of my disability. So that's why I can't really show my face, but this actually was, I'm sorry, it's a hard topic to talk about. So basically, in terms of my educational career, I didn't really understand how my different forms of identities created overlapping discrimination in my experience as a student. During my first year at the University of San Diego, I was racially targeted during a football practice. So that kind of resulted in me being diagnosed with a disability, which is post-concussive syndrome. And as a result of that, I've been dealing with a lot of, discomfort and pain due to that. And I know we're in the times where where we as a society are becoming more aware of racism and ways to, decrease and bring more awareness to it. But it was actually me understanding the term of intersectionality that helped me really understand how to approach and to deal with the trauma I faced, in a sense where I didn't know that being a part of the disabled community increased my sorry my oppression as a student. But I'm glad that I've been able to join this call, because one of the biggest things I learned is that when we come to really talk about our differences and our unique traits and identities and all the good and bad that comes with it, we're really able to accept ourselves, and it's through that acceptance where I was able to really not overcome the challenges that I faced due to my identities. So yeah.
Thank you so much, Bernard. I really enjoy when people are very vulnerable and they're open, about, themselves. So thank you for being so vulnerable and sharing such a, personal part of you.
Hey, Sal, can I say something really quickly?
Yeah, of course.
Not to answer the question, but Bernard, I just want to remind you that you're not low class, brother. You may not have money right now, but that doesn't mean you're low class. You may have a disability, but you're not disabled. You know what I mean? So I want you to really think about what that means and hopefully start using language that represents who you are a little bit more clearly. Because, so for me, if I have a son who this is an easy example of way for hopefully to understand. I have a son who has type 1 diabetes, right? He's not diabetic, right? He doesn't necessarily have to own the fact that he is this one thing. And I don't want you to own the fact that you're low class, quote unquote, because for a lot of people, that means something entirely different. So I just want to throw that out there, and maybe hopefully if you want to have a discussion offline about this and whatnot, we can definitely do that. But you are absolutely not low class, brother. Okay.
Yeah, thank you, Robert.
Yeah, no, and I think that's, I'm glad you jumped in, Robert, because I think sometimes, we think we are these things, right? And we become identified by these things. And so we kind of go into that mentality. And so that, what it continues to do, it just continues to, puts us in oppressed, seats. So, and then also shame, shame that comes with it. So I think it is important to recognize those things, but also think that it's important not to feel that we're defined by them. So we all share struggles, we all share identities that have made it difficult for us to continue to move forward, but that doesn't mean that we need to be defined by them. It's important to acknowledge them but not become defined by it. So thank you, Robert, for clarifying that and adding more to such a great answer that you gave to us. I do want to move on to the next question. So for the panelists, again, if you can expand on any of the themes in terms of agency, justice, or anti-racism as it connects to your identity or identities. I know Kazia wanted to talk on that, so I did promise her that I was gonna let her elaborate on this. But for this, we will allow 2 other individuals to speak as well. But Kaze, you have the floor.
Okay, so the only reason I asked Sal about this is because my license plate is literally agentic. And so I have this thing about agency, and I think part of it has to do with all of the work that the research that I've done over the years with sexualities. And so, when we were as sociologists, when we're talking about how can individuals relate to their own lives and move about within these structural systems, the idea of agency just is so profound and powerful in terms of recognizing our abilities as individuals to do and act at will. And so it is truly such a foundation in the work that I do, in my pedagogical philosophy, so the ways that I teach and how we work together within our campus community, and kind of the message that we try and instill in students, that students have agency, that people have agency, especially when they've got intersecting identities of oppression. And so the idea of authenticity within groups and of agency within groups, to be able to have that power and that control, and to use it in the ways that you see fit, are really important. I know for my work with sexuality, to have sexual agency, especially when you might identify with a particular gender identity or sexual identity, is incredibly important, so that we can challenge not only the heterosexism and homophobia, but other kinds of phobias and isms within our communities. And so just that concept of agency is so, so important. People often think that I am an ICE agent because of agentic, which is not what I am, and that's not what the message is. So the idea, again, of just being able to remind ourselves that we have power within these bigger structures, which is, again, so, so key to understanding not only our own positionality, but being able to create and make difference in our world. It's just a very powerful concept. It's great to see such visibility with agency in different contexts. And I have to remind myself of it every single day, which is why it's on my license plate. And it begins conversations about what agency actually is. And it truly then changes one individual at a time. So thank you for letting me speak on agency.
Of course, Kazia. I love having you always. Thank you. I think somebody else had their hand raised. Was it Anna?
I think it was Anna. Yes.
Hi, thank you. I wanted to share on this one too, because I think it's, this one spoke really deeply to me, but I guess I'll start by saying one of my most salient identities is being Asian. And I really wanted to talk about being Asian and really speaking out and being anti-racist, being very intentional about being anti-racist. And I just wanted to say, I was really reflecting deeply about this question over the last couple of days, but Asians have within itself as a race, I think a lot of intersectionality, a lot of intersecting identities, because even though we are all imposed the same race label, within that label of race, we have such different ethnicities. We don't share same language or culture oftentimes. And even, some of our cultures or ethnicities have had deep historical rifts. So we don't even, sometimes like each other. And so being Asian in America as well. So once you have being Asian in America, now you have another intersecting identity of like immigration status, because you could be undocumented, you could be a first generation, I'm second generation, you could be a fifth generation, been here for a very long time, and you have very different experiences within, just the immigration statuses. And then of course, you have different SES, and this is a global thing. Certain Asian countries are a lot more rich than others. And so you have all this complexity within, I think, being Asian. And in America, I think because of all of these different intersections, Asians do feel really marginalized in our own ways. We experience racism and microaggressions. We feel very othered. We're always foreign in this country because of the way we look. Yet we have relatively been quite successful in education or documented to be successful within education and even social economic status, the ability to gain social status and social and economic status. And so because of that, I think a lot of Asians sometimes mistakenly believe like, well, if we could do it, other people can do it. So I don't know why a lot of people complain about racism and things like that. And I think in that sense, a lot of Asians sometimes feel, that using the race card is a cop out. And so I just wanted to explain that, when I realized that Asians are utilized as a pawn in this whole, structure of white supremacy, we're often used as a way to pit a minority against other minorities. And I think that we fool ourselves because we think that our successes are due to our own efforts, without thinking about the fact that the opportunities that Asians are given in this country are given to us. And the reason why we have been able to be successful is oftentimes because we are a more palatable minority to those in power, probably because of our lighter skin tones. And so when you understand that, we are given certain opportunities in this country that other minorities have not been given, like moving into an affluent area or just getting educational access, these are given to us. So it's not, we fool ourselves in thinking it's only our effort, but there are other people of color in this country that have given the same amount of effort, if not more, yet they are still denied access to opportunities. So I think Asians really have a very specific, important role in speaking out against anti-racism and making sure that we're not used as a example. The model minority label has been very, very harmful in so many ways, not only just for Asians within the label that are not actually successful at all or very low income. So, but things like that. So I think we're often used, and I think that Asians also have, like that responsibility to really speak out against racism. We have to be very specific about it. I think a lot of Asians are sometimes confused. And so I just wanted to talk about how I felt about specifically Asians in the role in this area where we could really, call people out. Yeah. So thank you for letting me speak on this point.
Yeah, no, of course. Good job, Anna. So I think we are gonna have to move to the next question, just because of sake of time. Jack,
So the next question we have is, tell me about how your intersecting identity has shaped your social perceptions.
Here, I can jump in on that one. So I kind of believe that we by proxy adopt the generational intersectionality. We by proxy adopt our children's identities as well. And that's to suggest that some of the generational trauma that we experience living in our lives, they become part of us. I talked about my son's type 1 diabetes. He is non-binary, bisexual, man of color. And so what ends up happening is my father's perception and how he identified as a Black man then kind of, it shapes my thinking and how I view the world. So my social perceptions are founded upon my elders. They're founded upon my children, myself as well. I mean, I identify as a Black man, father, educator. But the idea, though, I think for me that really rings true is that their perceptions have helped me understand and guide how I think about the world. And I think it's a mistake not to consider our elders. I mean, as far as children, we oftentimes want to not be anything like our parents. We want to move away from perhaps a repressive way that they've lived. And I think that that's important. I'm not saying that we're destined to follow in their footsteps, but I do feel as though it's part of our fabric. And so as a Black man, the first book that I remember reading in a house where my dad was very much a community member, a Black revolutionary, was Dick Gregory's autobiography entitled Nigger. And that was the first book I read. So that then shapes how I perceive myself with a white mother. It changes how I perceive the world. And so my social interactions then became founded upon those kind of principles, the emancipation of Blacks by all means necessary. When I'm introduced, when my son comes up to me and says he wants to be referred to as they, it then forces me to understand a little bit more about that community. It makes me well, because I want to, I could completely ignore that, I guess, and just ignore what he wants and call him and all this other stuff. But I think that would be doing him a disservice. So the idea of social perception, I think is based on not only who we are and our identities, but our elders, ancestors, and then those that we interact with as well.
And Anna, go ahead.
Awesome, thank you. So I think that Robert brought up some really good points, and I'm glad he did. I agree with a lot of them. I would say that a lot of my identities has changed the way that I view people in general in social environments, but I would say that being trans has changed it the most. I've had to unlearn a lot of cis-normative ideals as well as internalized transphobia, and I'm still in the process of it. It is a lifelong process. It could be as simple as trying to use they, them for everybody before I know what gender identity they have, because although I am trans, I struggle to do that to this day. So I know that it must be even harder for like a cis person without the education to do so. As well as just listening to myself and my needs and not misgendering myself because of how I was raised. I mean, I didn't learn my gender identity until about 8 months ago. So that means I had almost 20 years on this planet of using she, her. And so that's what my brain knows. So I would say that every single person on this planet has cis-normative ideals that they need to unlearn. And that even includes the LGBT community, and probably even more so the LGBT community, to be honest, because the transphobia from non-trans people in the LGBT community is ridiculous, especially towards brown and Black people. Yeah, don't even get me started to Black trans women. So I think the main thing that I want to push is there's nothing wrong with unlearning these transphobic things. We all should be doing it as long as you're open to do so and respectful in the process. There's nothing wrong with it, but it's just how you go about it. And I think keeping in mind that it's not trans people's jobs to educate you. And so if they want to and they're open to, then be grateful, be thankful, because they don't have to at the end of the day. And sometimes it's really traumatic also to open up the questions that cis people ask. So I would say be respectful, but just be open at the end of the day.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with you, Anna. I mean, I see it within our community, right? So I'm glad you brought that point. But I think every group, has some of that, to share with their own communities. So, but I think it is very relevant, especially when you're seeing these things with the trans community or gender non-conforming individuals. We do have to get moving. And I think some of these responses have kind of led to the next question, which is in what ways has your understanding of your intersecting identity impacted how you navigated the world? I know it's been touched on here and there, but if there's anybody else that would like to add something in addition to this question. So in what ways has your understanding of your intersecting identity impacted the way that you navigate yourself in this world?
Surrender,
If
go
I
ahead.
may,
Miranda?
Okay, sorry.
Go ahead and Miranda.
Okay, so I mean, this is a great question, and I think in some ways it kind of encompasses some of the other themes that we've talked about. And so I mentioned earlier, like that I identify as a Black woman, and I think my Blackness is definitely a very salient identity coming from a low income background, although I'm not necessarily low income anymore. That absolutely shapes like how I navigate the world. And thinking of that, especially in my professional role, like as a counseling faculty here on campus, and thinking about anti-racism and thinking like, you know, how can we be anti-racist before we address the systems of racism that are embedded in society, but also within the higher education structure itself. Like this space wasn't necessarily made for us, but we're here and we're showing up. And so those are things that I think about. And as I navigate the world, I identify as an ally. So one of the A's on the LGBTQIA+ spectrum. And so I think about how I can be understanding of folks who have identities different than my own, but have similar struggles. So, you know, as an ally, like how can I show up for the LGBTQIA+ community? How can I show up for undocumented folks and folks who maybe in certain situations might not necessarily be able to express those things, because even though I, you know, have some of those intersecting identities that are different, but I also have power at the same time. So I always am thinking about that when I navigate the world. And so I think about that being a member of the African American Employees Network on campus here, which, you know, who's done some really phenomenal things like having our dialogue on race and racism here on campus for Juneteenth, writing the Black Lives Matter, helping to write the Black Lives Matter statement that was approved by Academic Senate. And so just reminding our Black students, like, you know, that you do matter, that we do care about you, and that we are going to continue to break down racist systems and racist policies that are embedded in our campus here. And we see you, we know that the microaggressions are happening on a daily basis. And so when I navigate the world, I'm thinking about my Blackness, but I'm also thinking of things from perspectives of when I was low income. So thinking about how do policies impact our low income students? How do they impact our Black students? And then also when I'm navigating throughout the world, like when I see injustices happening to my queer folks, to my undocumented folks, like speaking up for them as well.
Thank you, Surrender.
Can I just oh, sorry. I was just going to say, can I follow up on that, Serena? That was so well put. And I think, you know, I kind of noted this before, the idea of struggles and power within groups is really important to acknowledge. And so when we are a part of communities that have power, what does it mean to be an ally? What does it mean to be visible and vocal with the power that we have to be able to challenge, you know, these oppressions? I think is also an important level of self-awareness, but also collective awareness in terms of the powers that we have within certain identities in certain contexts. So I just.
Perfect.
Since that wasn't like a totally complete answer, do we want to let one more person take on? I think that was like a building upon.
I think Anna had her hand up.
Awesome.
Okay, I wasn't sure if we had time, but I mean, I just wanted to touch on what both Anna and what Saranda said. for me, I think it's been difficult. Again, I'm going to bring up the Asian part because I think culturally it's been really ingrained. We're a very community-oriented culture. Sorry, it's not about the individual. So you're always supposed to assimilate and do things for the good of the community rather than yourself. So speaking out has been extremely difficult for me to learn. When injustices occur to me, I always feel like, I don't want to make a big deal. I don't want to rock the boat. It's okay. It's fine, but it's not fine. And so I think education, getting an education, going to grad school, really learning about systemic racism and how it hurts so many, I was able to reframe that, like, speaking out is for the good of the community because so many are suffering. And so I really had to unlearn, just like what Anna was saying, unlearn deep ingrained cultural, the way that I was raised so that I can speak out and sit on panels like this and talk about these things that is very uncomfortable for even me as a professional. And so I think also gender roles, speaking of intersectionality, like in Asian cultures, gender roles, there's like a huge, women are supposed to be subservient. So, so breaking out of that and unlearning that as well. And so I think, taking what Saranda said as well, like, it's like you have to use your power when you have it to speak out. And it's been really hard to unlearn some of these deeply ingrained cultural values, gender role values that were taught to me, so that I can do good for the community. So I had to really reframe that so that I could be an advocate, be anti-racist, use agency, be empowered. And a lot of that came with being educated. So all the students out there, you're doing a good job, keep learning, and it's going to help you grow.
Thank you, Anna. Is there anybody on the panel that would like to add to this question? We are extending the time.
Yes, I had something to say, sir. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Well, my name is Maura and I do HR at a big company. And something that I've learned just through work and now that I'm taking Dr. Simmons' class is not to assume. Because I feel like as a first generation Latina, I grew up with very strict Central American parents. And when my sister came out as bisexual, I was actually very shocked to see how open and understanding they were, with the whole idea that like old school parents aren't open-minded and such. So for her to sit as the whole family down and explain to them that she identified as she, her, but that she just how she felt and who she was since she was 5 years old, and she was 20 when this happened. So just understanding not to make assumptions, because sometimes I feel like we tend to jump into conclusions before we actually test out the waters. And then something I've learned with work, having a lot of my team members just being different because everyone's different, So just that's one thing that I've actually learned by taking my psychology class this semester is just never make assumptions and always listen before you speak. And if you do see like some other of our panelists have been sharing, if you see something that's not right or unjust, just step in and say something, because what's the worst that can happen? I think you might feel more guilty if you stayed quiet instead of stepping in and taking action at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And that's it.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing. I think that's such a great point. We will be opening it up to everybody to ask their questions at the end of the panel. But in terms of the panelists, is there anybody else on the panel that would like to add anything to this question? Anything that hasn't already been said? Okay, and if not, then that's great. We can go ahead and ask the last question. We still have Jack here with us. Jack, if you can ask the last question.
All right, so this one's for everybody. We want everybody on the panel to answer this one. In what ways have your intersecting identities influenced your ability to understand those with different identities than your own?
go ahead and start. I feel like I kind of alluded to this a little bit in my last answer, but my intersecting identities, being Black, female, first gen, coming from a low income background, has really helped me to specifically have empathy and understanding for my LGBTQIA plus folks, as well as individuals who identify as being undocumented. And I think, again, coming from multiple marginalized backgrounds, it gives me power to speak up for those folks when I see injustices happening. I also just want to add that, like, I went to Gardena High School, and it was some years back, but at the time when I was there were race riots almost every year between Blacks and Latinos. And I, even then, like, as like baby Saranda in high school, I just would think to myself, like, how powerful we could be together if the Blacks and Latinos weren't fighting, if it was like, like, let's come together, like, let's show up for our queer folks, especially with this new Supreme Court justice. I am worried, so I know I'm gonna have to show up to fight oppression, to show up for the kids that are being separated from their parents at the border. Like, if we come together, like, we have so much power against white supremacy in this country, because there are way more of us than there are of them. Not to be us and them, but like, I just think about like how we can really start to break down systems of racism that we operate in. And so just, going on what Anna said, like unlearning things like hegemony, cisgender, cisnormative talk, and really kind of questioning and breaking down things that we think we know, because we've learned to be homophobic. Like, that is something that's learned. Like, even if you identify on the queer spectrum, like, that is taught to you. And so we have to unlearn those things every day and show up for other marginalized populations.
Anybody else?
I don't know how you can go any further than what Saranda says. I mean, really, I mean, she hit it on the head. It's, for me personally, I remember eating county cheese and drinking powdered milk and struggling, and it was just the norm. It wasn't as if I remember thinking to myself, boy, I'm poor. It was just life. And then, so what that does, it helps you empathize, and Saranda said it helps you empathize with those who are struggling today. As a mixed race, straight man, it helps me empathize, not necessarily with straight men, but it helps me empathize with the communities that I have had to interact with. I mean, yes, growing up in a household, and in a divorce household, in a low income household, all of these other things.
What is?
I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. I don't know. Anyway, I think that Saranda really said it best. It helps us empathize, and then that empathy then hopefully pushes us to act. It hopefully pushes us to make sure that the system is going to change if in fact you're not happy with it. Because if you don't have that community-based perspective, and it's all about the individual, then we're going to find ourselves in a dark, dark, dark place. So hopefully the empathy then leads to action. So Saranda, thank you very much for being so eloquent as always. But I don't think that there's any more to say from my perspective.
Yeah, just to add on, I just want to say, Saranda, pretty much what you're going to say is exactly what I was going to say, but you said it a lot more beautiful. But I will say that I want to echo what you said about showing up, because at the end of the day, that's one of the most important things you can do, as most of us know. I would say that my identities have just highlighted that point. And even more specifically this past year, has just taught me that there's so many ways to show up, and that doesn't always mean to physically show up if you're not able to. There's also, as far as, you can phone bank, like there's a bunch of things that you can do to show up for the times that we're in. And so I would just say that me being undocumented, I mean, in academic settings, I grew up being treated differently just because I didn't have a piece of paper that a lot of people were just by luck born into. And so because of that, it made me look differently at white people, for instance. Like I've like flocked with like other Black, brown people, Latinos, because I felt safe. And so I would say that that's made me understand those identities more, because it's made me have deeper conversations with those people that I maybe wouldn't have otherwise have had if I didn't have the identity that I had. So I think that that's the most that I would do.
Thank you, Anna. Thank you for sharing. Anybody else in the panel outside of what's already been said? Yeah.
Yes, because Saranda, good job. But I'll just add, understanding intersectionality really makes you not just, I think like a lot of times we can put ourselves in different categories, like, race categories, and so we're different, or gender categories, or sexual orientation. And there's so many different categories we can put ourselves in, but because of the layered identities that each of us hold, we might be different race, but we're the same gender, or we might be the same sexual orientation, but a different socioeconomic status. So like, there are sameness, there's sameness as well. And so many of our identities can be marginalized, but we also hold identities that have power. And so I think when you understand that we have a lot of shared identities, it's I feel more unity, and it's important to speak out, because in one way you might have power, in others you don't. So what's the saying? A threat to injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. So it's like, I kind of take that as like, because of each of our different identities, we're the same in so many ways as we are different. So we all need to show up for each other. We all need to have empathy. And it just really makes me feel close to people that may look different than me, or come from a different background than me, but I feel close to humans, to our humanity. So.
Anna, I thought that was so well said. I just from a group level perspective, being able to understand inclusiveness and in-group kind of experiences, and how there's salience within those experiences, that sometimes we're so focused on difference that we, kind of forget that there are elements that unify us and bring us together, and that we have kind of these meaningful experiences within some of our identities. And I think that's one of the powerful ways of looking at intersectionality from a sociological perspective, that, we are groups of people that are coexisting and interacting with one another, but there are individuals within those groups. So at a very baseline level, just remembering that we have multiple identities within each of our own experiences. Sometimes we relate, sometimes we don't. Sometimes they might be identities of oppression, sometimes there might be power carried within them. And to challenge our expectations of authenticity, but hold ourselves authentically accountable, I think is really difficult, right? To sort of, step back and say, is this person Black enough, or gay enough, or non-binary enough? Can this person just be who this person is? And can these people within these groups find common ground and work together to challenge some of the oppressive experiences and social policies and discrimination and prejudgments that so many other groups hold? So I just wanted to echo everyone's contribution in that way, and just kind of build on what Anna had said.
And really quickly, I think it's important to remember that even if you're part of you have an aspect of self that has historically been marginalized, oppressed, that doesn't mean that you don't have power. And I mean, for all of us out there who are multidimensional in that regard, we probably have a lot of oppressive aspects of self. But again, it just doesn't mean that you are without power. So I just want you all to kind of remember that. And I'm talking really to the students more than I am anybody else here. That you have the power to be able to change, just like Cassia and Anna were talking about collectively, even if you do have an oppressive aspect of self to change things.
Yeah, no, I think that's very good to keep in mind. That's a very important piece because of what we were discussing earlier. Bernard, I'm not sure if you want to add to the conversation, if you would like to share something about this question.
Yeah, I mean, everybody did a great job of just answering that question. I think, and let's touched on this too, that like, that we are different, but we also like gotta talk about sameness too, you know, and how like despite our identities, we do share common experiences, you know, even though it might be different in gender or color or background, you know, there's something about us that we can relate to, you know. So yeah, that's something I think that should also be emphasized and talked about too. So yeah.
Thank you so much. And I think that's everyone on the panel who did get an opportunity to answer this question. I know that everybody who's attending this event is probably dying to ask the panelists some questions. So I do want to open it up now for Q&A. So Erica, if you can help me select someone who has their hand raised up or even thumbs up, if you can let us know if you would like to ask the panelists a question.
And also you can put your questions in the chat box as well and just put 3 asterisks with the question, and that question will be read aloud if you don't want to say your question.
Thank you, Saranda. That's great.
I have a question that might be helpful for everyone. Does anybody have recommendations? I know some books and links and videos were already dropped in conversation, but if the panelists recommend anything for people to get more information or learn more about intersectionality, any recommendations?
I would say Kimberly Crenshaw, anything. But I think it's also valuable to read and learn about, like, you know, your own intersecting identities as well as others intersecting identities as well. So, you know, looking for books or even TV shows or movies that are made by queer folks. I'm thinking about like Pose specifically, that you know, is made by a Black trans woman, has many trans folks starring in it. So you're really getting those perspectives. Disclosure on Netflix, I think, is a really great way to learn about the trans community, both trans men and women. But there's so much out there. Oh my gosh, it's like a whole vibe. I'm also in the doctoral program, so I'm just gonna be quiet because I could talk forever. But I'm sure there are lots of other things as well.
Thank you. And we do have a question. Oh, go ahead, Cassie.
I was just going to say, I just included a link from Grinnell that has some great research articles and books that not only showcase Black feminist theory, Pat Hill Collins and Bell Hooks, who were kind of pre-Kimberly, around Kimberly Crenshaw's time, but also show how intersectionality plays out in terms of sexual orientation, race, class, gender, and other social categories. So that link includes a lot of books, but also some other scholarly articles that range from the 70s on that students might find useful.
Thank you so much. That's awesome. We do have a question for the panelists. What actions would have made you feel more supported or heard or seen as you were growing up?
If I can take this, I think that some of the quote unquote actions would have been education, first of all, just to see more trans and LGBT education growing up would have made all of the difference, as well as just even existence, like movies, TV shows, the things that you grow up seeing. Um, Nowadays, there's a lot more, but even more so. Most of the time when there's a sapphic woman love woman character, they're never labeled as lesbian. It's always bi or sapphic. So I think that there's still a very heavy negative connotation around that word. And so just I think visibility at the end of the day would have made all of the difference.
Thank you, Anna. Does anybody else want to chime in?
You know, it's funny though, because sometimes I still don't feel heard or seen, listened to at all. You know what I mean? I mean, as a Black man, I mean, I have to fight every single day to be able to say, no, here I am, unapologetically. Like, there's people who I can be the angry Black man, and that's just, those are their issues. I think it's being comfortable with yourself and being comfortable with continuing to fight. Sure, growing up, there's certain things that could have happened, but I don't think that that would change my circumstances. It may have changed, it wouldn't have changed my social circumstances. It would have changed perhaps what's happening immediately in my house, right? But it's not going to change the world's perspective on who I am. I was in a graduate program and I still got pulled over by the police. I knew the chief of police, but that didn't matter. So I would be careful thinking that if you change what happens at home, all of a sudden that's what's the whole world is going to change, and then therefore it's going to be easier. And maybe this is cynical. It's kind of starting to sound hella cynical, but my experience as a Black man and being afraid and not being seen is, I think it's a continual fight. And I would surround yourself with people who are advocates, people who are allies, and shit, stay in school and keep educating yourself.
Do we have any other questions? Erica?
No, I think the chat is clear, so.
Okay.
Can I add one more or like two more recommendations for all of our students in this space? I would encourage you to also take our African American history, the history 110, 111, history of the Chicano, history 112, taking ethnic studies. Those are great ways to really engage with the literature and expand your realm of understanding, whether you identify as being Black or you identify as being another race. I think those are really valuable, as well as within sociology and psychology, we have, I believe there's a class on like gender, we have class on human sexuality. Like there's so many ways, like if you want to like learn this stuff, like there are whole classes, there's whole programs based on these identities. So I'll just like throw that out there too.
And to take that just one more level, you can also join student groups, right? You can be an ally to many groups on campus. So yeah, Anna, I think you had a question.
Oh, sorry. I just wanted to add, maybe not so much younger, maybe this is appropriate in college, maybe it should be introduced younger, but I think one of the most harmful things that, at least in my generation, I was taught was to be colorblind, and thinking that that's something that's good or not racist. That was just extremely harmful in retrospect. And I think like, if it was taught earlier on that the way you look gives you different experiences in life, and so that has to be considered. And the notion of meritocracy cannot exist if we are in an just world. Because I think I had to unlearn a lot of that stuff. So, you know, I think like I don't know. I think that was one of the most harmful things that I really bought into and believed in when I was young. And you know, it's so harmful to so many people, not only of color, but just of different marginalized social identities. So I think if that was taught earlier on, that being colorblind doesn't mean, isn't good, isn't a good way to fight racism, then we would have been so much further along, I think.
Thank you, Anna.
And just to echo that as well.
Go ahead.
Sorry, Erica. I just wanted to say too, in the social sciences classes in psychology and in anthropology and in sociology, we have courses, like Serinda said, for sexualities, for gender, for race and ethnicity. Even in my death and dying class, we talk about how our different social categories impact the ways that we handle death and dying. So looking for classes, if these are concepts that are interesting to you, looking for classes that have professors who can bring an intersectional approach. Or if faculty aren't teaching that intersectional approach, doing some work on your own to try and figure out how these dots are connected, or challenge your professors to bring an intersectional approach to whatever classes you're in is a great way of starting that conversation. If maybe the professor is ill-equipped, or maybe more students just like you have that curiosity. So taking classes that focus on people and different aspects of people, groups of people, identities, history, culture are really great ways to be exposed to this kind of stuff in lots of different ways. So thanks for all those shameless plugs.
Yeah, thanks, Cassia. We do have one more question. How can we introduce these topics to young children?
I can answer.
Can I just add on that one? Because I'm a parent and I am part of the LGBT community, how we've introduced that to our children. We have a 4-year-old who is very open in her conversations at playgroup and things like that. We've introduced the story from the moment she was able to talk and understand us to say, this is your family makeup. You have 2 moms. You're a child of Latinx heritage with a white mom and an Asian mom. So we've really introduced different ideas and the intersectionalities that she might have growing up at a very early age. You know, people tend to think that children don't understand us until they're able to form words or able to really show emotion and things like that. But no, from the moment she was born and put in our arms at 3 weeks old, we started having those vocabularies and those dialogues with her. And that's how we've approached using it with our young child. And we've done the same thing because we just had another child place with us. She placed with us at 7 months old, but she, you know, at 7 months old, she understands her environment. So we introduced that vocabulary into her environment and her understanding too. So, and the funny thing is our 4-year-old goes to playgroup and talks about her story and shares her story and shares her home life and shares her understanding of these different things. And she's only 4. So that would be my suggestion on how to introduce this conversation with a young child. Sorry, I just wanted to jump in because I felt like an urge to jump in on that one.
Thank you so much. I do want to point out too, books like this, Anti-Racist Baby, would be good too. Anybody else?
I would add there are entire collections on books. Like after I saw your question posted, I was trying to go back in my Facebook profile because early in the summer, after the killings of Breonna Taylor and George Floyd, rest in peace, I actually posed a question to my entire Facebook community kind of just asking, and I apologize in advance if I offend anyone, but I was just like, white people, what are you teaching your kids? And so it actually started an entire Facebook thread of books to teach children about racism, because for Black folk, for other POC folks, like we have to teach our kids about race and racism very early, because it can literally mean life or death situations in the future. And so I really challenged a lot of my social network to really have those hard conversations. And I think one way, again, is like just doing that research. So again, kind of going off what Anna said, like, you know, it's not necessarily the responsibility of POCs or trans folks to teach you about like what to teach, but that information is out there. Like there's so much. You can definitely ask. Like one particular resource, there's an anti-racism resources for white people. And so that's like one, but there were so many that got brought up, you know, in that Facebook post of different resources, including like, you know, being an anti-racist baby. There's so many more, but it is like deep in my my social media feed.
And I think I want to echo what Katie was talking about in terms of, I have 3 children. They're all boys, from 10 years old to 23. And I mean, mind you, boys are dumb as a sack of nails for a long time. We're terrible. But, and that's not to say that they're stupid by any stretch of the imagination, but children are sophisticated, are super sophisticated. And I think just having a conversation, asking the question, what does an intersectionality mean to you, is not something that that you wouldn't get a response from them. Maybe they don't know, but then we can introduce it. But having candid conversations with children of any age, I think would work, and it would help start the process. You all probably are very well aware of how the language that you use in your house is going to be critical to them understanding intersectionality, who they are, the different aspects of themselves, the expectations as well. Not asking, are there any girls at school that you like? Like, you know, just because you're talking to a boy doesn't mean that question is posed in that fashion. So I think the language that you use, and just reminding yourself that children are crazy sophisticated and can probably understand a lot more than you give them credit for.
Yeah, and I'm gonna add to that because I do have one of my nephews who I'm very close to. And he actually told me once, you know, it got me from surprise, actually, when he said this to me. He was only 6 at the time, and he actually told me, he's like, he looked at me like really serious, and he's like, life is hard, right? And so, you know, I was like, how do you know this? Like, why are you talking about why life is hard? So, you know, children, and I'm going to mirror what you said, Robert. You know, they're a lot more sophisticated, more knowledgeable, and they're aware of what's happening in their surroundings, you know. So let's not undermine their intelligence, you know, their logic or their emotional intelligence, because they're very intuitive too, and very smart. So thank you everyone for sharing your experiences. Thank you for being part of this panel. I do want to thank Saranda Silvers again, Robert Williams for being here today. Also Anna Soto, thank you for being here, Anna Berchet, and also a very special thanks to Bernard. I'm gonna mispronounce your last name, but I think it's Amofa. Bernard Amofa, correct me if it's wrong. Thank you. But we do really want to appreciate your time for being here today with us. You know, and we do need to move on because I do want to be very mindful of people's time. We did have to cut into the activity that we had for today, but I actually felt that the panel discussion went very, very well. So My apologies, Jacqueline and Rosalba, if you can drop the PDF or the activity on the chat so that people can refer to it, so that on your own time, you can actually access this really great activity that helps you understand not just what intersectionality is, but also what intersectionality it means for other people that are around you. So again, thank you to all of our panelists. Thank you for taking an hour and a half of your time today to be here with us. I am going to skip the activity, and I do want to remind everyone that we do have another event that's coming up, which is our Transgender Awareness Day, a pronoun panel event that's actually being led by one of our student panelists who's here today with us. So Anna, I don't know if you would like to talk a little bit about the event to invite everyone to join us for this very important event that you're putting together with other students on Tuesday, November 10th from 4 to 5:30.
Yeah, thank you so much, Sal. I'd love to see everyone there. But basically, it's honestly a very important event in the sense of pronouns. Everybody has them. So this is how you interact with other people. And it's one of the first ways that you see that you interact with somebody to know like if you're transphobic or not. And so it's so important to not have those microaggressions in daily conversations. And, you know, as a cis person, it's totally okay to have the questions that you have about trans people, about pronouns. And this is going to be a very informative event. So I really think it'll be helpful for everybody to attend.
Yeah, so if you just hover your phone over to the QR code, you can actually start registering for it already. We're already at about 40 to 45 RSVPs, and we just opened up the event this week. So it is going to be a very popular event, very promising. So I encourage you all to attend. If for any reason you're not able to access the QR code, you can also use the Bitly link that's available there.
Also, just to add on, it will be recorded. I know a couple people just messaged me privately to ask. It will be recorded. So don't worry if you're not able to attend. We'll make sure that it gets out there.
And it will be available on our LGBTQIA+ resource website. So if you're not familiar, if you haven't visited our El Camino LGBTQIA+ resource website, it will actually be posted there. So the same thing with this event. If you would like to revisit, if you would like to share with your friends, it's also going to get posted on our website.
Can I do 2 selfless plugs really quick, Sal?
Yes, of course.
Okay, I put a bunch of book lists in the comments section. I did find that post, so there's a bunch of books in there. Also, next week is National First Generation Awareness Week, and in line with El Camino's focus on being an anti-racist campus, we're going to be focusing on Black First Gen experience. And so on Monday, there's a Black First Gen alumni chat. So whether you identify as being Black or you want to learn more about the Black experience, register for that. On Tuesday, we're having an event, Power of the Black Vote. And on Thursday, we are having a Black First Gen symposium, and we have a leading scholar that is going to be presenting, Dr. LaTanya Reese-Miles. And the second piece, the ECC African American Employees Network is planning to put on an event for all Black students this month. And so keep your eyes peeled in your email for that for all of my Black students that are on this call today. We want to engage with you. And again, just let you know that we are here to support you and we're going to keep fighting for you.
Yeah, those are great events. I do want to recommend everybody to go. You know, Saranda has been working really hard along with Cynthia, Dr. Cynthia Mosqueda, and so many others to put this event together. So make sure you help us spread the word about all of these events. We would love to see you there. So if you like this event, you're going to love those events even more so. So I guarantee you. And then just very lastly, before everybody logs off, if you can please give us your input on this event. We would like to know if you feel events like this should continue to be offered in the future. And if so, we would love to hear your perspective, what you took away from this, what you liked, what you didn't like. Hopefully you liked more things that you disliked. So we do want to encourage everyone to complete the post survey before everybody logs off. So I'm just going to give you guys a couple seconds to kind of take a picture of this, complete it. It is confidential. This is just for us to know how we can improve for future events. Be mindful that technology was not part of it. So we do sincerely apologize for all this mishap that happened earlier with the technology. We will work on making sure we correct those things in the future. But if you can please take some time, we do want to acknowledge again everybody who's been part of this event, the LGBTQIA+ Safe Zone Project, Student Equity and Achievement, Undocu Warriors, also the First Generation Initiative, and then also our ECC African American Employees Network for being part of this event. With that said, this concludes this event. So thank you so much for attending, and please make sure to complete the post survey before you leave. Thank you so much.
I have a quick question for Ms. Bray. So I already RSVP for both events. The third one, there was no link. So I don't know if you guys have added that recently, but it said go to some other site. So I didn't know if that was just for professors. But anyways, what is the use of having that form on election day when it's basically the time has ended? Is about to end when the votes were counted, or is very limited time for anyone if they even want to go bum rush into the crowds or into public to vote if they do feel some kind of change of heart from I guess the form or whatever. Like, shouldn't that have been something that happened ahead of time in order to inform people and then give them time to research or whatever?
So there have been other events that ASO's been putting on campus. And so the reason we had that event on that day, because National First Generation Awareness Week starts next week. And so that event is just a way to educate folks on the power of the Black vote. And again, like, voting doesn't necessarily end. That is the last day to vote. And if someone maybe hasn't voted, we would hope that they would get out and vote that day, but we hope that most people have already started to cast those ballots, and also just being informed for the future, because